What is the quickest way you've seen someone mess their life up? Story 1. A girl from my school posted a video on Facebook of her doing vastly inappropriate things with a dog. Apparently, she'd been forced into it by an uncle. It was deleted the day it was posted, but everyone saw it and she now goes by a new name. Also, a guy from school at 19 attacked a 13-year-old boy in a cemetery over a girl, not far away from where I live. The guy was built like a tank and a bully, and to tell you the truth, I'd always thought he had a violent vibe. She's changed her name and moved somewhere else. I didn't mean she got a nickname that she goes by, but I bet she did have a lot of nicknames. Also, this happened in Carlisle, UK. Story 2. Not me, but a friend who was an AP Chem and they were working with some sodium something, and his classmate snorted it as a joke. He was rushed to the ER and now his risk for nasal and lung cancer is through the roof. His predicted lifespan is like mid-30s, maybe early 40s now, and it was all for a stupid reference. Story 3. I worked in medical in a county jail. There was a 27-year-old pharmacist who had just been sentenced to prison for taking someone's life on his third DUI. The guy was handsome and soft-spoken. He knew he wasn't going to make it in prison. He got 2 years, which is the minimum for a third DUI in Texas. I don't know how long he served because this was 10 years ago. But yes, I agree it is about connections. He should have received a longer sentence. The family of the victim does not get their loved one back when he's released from prison. Story 4. I had a friend years back. Always kind of an odd guy, but he had a good heart. Anyway, one day I was hanging out with him and a few other friends, and he told us he was going to get a tattoo tomorrow and had this super cool idea, but he wouldn't tell us what it was because he wanted it to be a surprise. Story 5. I was part of a group of kids from a neighborhood that got a full-ride scholarship to college, free MacBook Pros, and room and board paid for 4 years. Needless to say, crazy opportunity, right? Well, during the summer meetup, right before we all went off to our separate colleges, 3 members of the group went across the street and started smoking a joint and were immediately caught by the admission. They had to call their parents that day and tell them they lost everything in a couple of minutes. Story 6. Saw a guy slide down a stair rail and fall backward 12 feet onto a concrete floor. Passed away at the hospital less than 24 hours later. From college student to dust in less than a day. Pretty quick. Story 7. Back a few years ago, this idiot I know gave up a good home, a steady job, and some of his closest friendships, all to go move to another state with a girl he had known for all of 2 months. She left him a month and a half later or so. And after he went crying home to his parents, he had trouble getting a good job and was hospitalized for a bit for trying to take his own life. Man, was I a back then. Luckily, it all worked out in the end, and I'm quite happy now. What a twist. Story 8. There was this kid in my high school JROTC program who was at the top of his class. Super smart, and one of those people you know would succeed in anything they wanted. Well, when it came time to choose the leadership for the following year, the teachers overlooked him and didn't choose him for a high position in the program. After that, he started doing illegal substances, skipping class, and his grades went down quickly. He ended up not graduating high school, and going to jail a couple of times, and it's sad, because he was someone that I looked up to since he was older than me. Story 9. I used to work part-time in a betting shop, which was conveniently located right next to a cash point. We didn't take cards. One of our regular customers came in and put 200 pounds into the FOBT machine to play the slots. Okay, nothing new. But then 30 minutes down the line and 5,000 pounds later, she breaks down crying and begs us to give her the money back, as it was all she had left from her recently deceased mother. Story 10. When I was in college in the early 2000s, a sophomore drove his car into a bunch of kids out partying on a Saturday, a block and a half from where I was living. He was going 60 to 70 miles per hour, swiping cars parked on the side of the road before he hit the crowd, taking the lives of 4 people. He got out screaming nonsense before being tackled, was under the influence. Last I heard, he was in a mental facility. Story 11. One of my friends went from being moderately functional to losing any custody of his daughter and bouncing in and out of rehab within like 6 months. 2 years later, he has a wanted poster with his face all over it in Tennessee. Story 12. We were about 17 and me and my friends went to a beach house for summer. Well, there was a cliff. Not so big one. Should be around 5 meters high. And one of my friends decided to run and jump without checking how deep the sea was. Long story short, it had a lot of rocks and he broke his back. He didn't mess up his life, but lost both his legs. Story 13. The course of a weekend. He met a girl at a party on Friday, put in his resignation at work and sent an email to his advisor. He was giving up his grad program on Saturday and moved across the continent with a girl he met by Monday morning. Story 14. At a party with a friend. I didn't know her friends well. Someone offered us hard substances, but I wanted to leave. She, on the other hand, has a crush on the guy and wants to stay. She assures me she isn't interested in trying it. I try to talk her out of it and to just leave with me, but no. Plus, I'm starting to get flack for being lame and that I wanted out. The last thing she said to me before I left was, "You're such a drag and a terrible friend." I told her if worrying for her and my safety made me a drag and a bad friend, that I was okay with it. She passed away that night. So did he. Batch was laced with fentanyl. Story 15. A beautiful, jaw-dropping really, cousin of mine went from being a successful social worker with a master's from UK, a beautiful family and a gorgeous home, to a single, jobless ass with both of her children in the same system she worked for. Got her teeth ruined in record time. Story 16. When I was in college, I had a job at a local supermarket. One of my colleagues left at the beginning of summer as she was headed to uni in the autumn. Next thing I know, she's in the papers because she was driving a car whilst someone was car surfing on it and the guy died. Saw her in the shop a couple of weeks after it happened. She looked like a mess. I believe she went to prison, but not sure how long. Story 17. Not me, but my dad. When he was at college, one of his friends snapped after an argument with his mother and took her life, as well as involving his two little cousins who his mom was babysitting. This was 38 years ago, and he's still in prison. Story 18. Friend head dived off a fraternity balcony while drunk into a parking lot. He now has half a brain and is wheelchair bound. Story 19. So not so much bad as it was sad. This happened around 2006 to 2008. Can't remember exactly when because I was about 11 at the time. I had a friend in elementary school and middle school that lived within 2 miles from me, and a pharmacy between our houses. Her 12-year-old sister, 9-year-old brother, and her mother, 40-ish, were at the pharmacy picking up a few things and were walking to their car in the parking lot. Apparently, as they were walking, the mother pushed both my friend and her brother away from her. My friend hit her head on the sidewalk and woke up to her brother screaming and crying. What happened was that as they were walking, the mother noticed a car that was slamming on the gas while trying to back out of a parking spot. The car was heading straight towards them and the mother pushed the kids out of the way. Car hit the mother and she passed away. The little brother saw the whole thing happen and has been struggling with depression and traumatic PTSD since. My friend got a concussion from the incident, lost her mother, and has never been the same. Sad thing is that the driver wasn't drunk or high or anything. It was a tiny little 80-year-old lady that wasn't used to driving the car and pressed too hard on the gas pedal. Don't exactly know what happened when the police got involved, but my friend has been messed up ever since. Story 20. At a bachelor party in Vegas doing a club tour, we would always set a time to meet back at the limo before going to the next one. One dude fell in love and went into the VIP room with a dancer. Told him we were leaving after staying an extra 30 minutes. He waved us on and we left. The next morning, we went back after he didn't show up at the hotel room. He was being detained by dancers for owing them $9,000 in dances but had maxed out all his cards and withdrew all his cash. On dances. The money was supposed to pay for his upcoming honeymoon. Story 21. A fourth-year neurology resident got fired for attacking an Uber driver. She went through 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, was about to finish her fourth and last year of residency, acquired hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt along the way, and blew it all after she attacked somebody. Story 22. Justine Sacco, the lady that tweeted, "Going to Africa. Hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding, I'm white," and then got on an airplane. Story 23. Knew a guy in high school that was a computer whiz. Probably could have gotten any computer science-related job he wanted out of college. He decided to run off with a 14-year-old boy he met online and was caught recently. It was a federal investigation. The guy I knew was 20 when he ran away with a 14-year-old. Story 24. DUI. Had a friend in high school who was serving a life sentence for driving into 2 other friends of mine. He had a full scholarship to a 4-year university for football. Story 25. Watching a friend sign up for $620 car payments over a 72-month loan. Not necessarily messed their life, but definitely hasn't felt comfortable for the last 2.5 years. Story 26. This happened in a 2-week period. A friend of mine lost his kitchen job due to layoffs, looked in the paper for a job he could get quickly so he could make his bills, rent, etc. Finds a listing for a company looking for a driver and delivery person ASAP. He has a car, so he figures it would be a good quick fix. Calls and gets the job over the phone and is told he starts the next evening. Gets a company cell phone and does his first pickup. Turns out it's an escort agency and is picking up and dropping off the talent. Does this for a few nights and starts getting to know the girls. Turns out they're all to illegal substances. Big surprise. They get the idea in his head that he's doing all the groundwork, so he might as well post the ads himself and get his own phone and they'll work for him. So we're about a week into this adventure and he's gone from a line cook to pimp. Fast forward a couple of days into pimping, and he comes to the conclusion that all these girls spend their money on are substances. So why not cut out the middleman and start paying them what they want? He doesn't know where to get them, but his kitchen buddies can cook him up. Gets a bag of heavy substances and Googles how to make it. Yes, really. Whips up a batch of these and then is concerned that maybe he didn't make it correctly. So logically, he should try it first before giving it to his ladies. 36-hour binge later, he's hooked and proceeds to sell off everything including the car and phone in the next few days. I dropped by his place to hang out around day 10. I had no idea any of this was going on. He meets me at the door, explains what he's been up to for the past few days, and says he doesn't want me there unless I'd like to pay and hook up with one of the escorts in the living room. Strangely, I declined. Last time I saw him yelling at people for change in a downtown street. 14 days and his entire life turned to garbage. Moral judgments aside, I must admit I am impressed by his entrepreneurial spirit. I'm not even joking. That kind of drive would have served him well in a legitimate job. Story 27. I was the catcher for a kid in my town who was a nasty pitcher from an early age. At 16 or 17, he could throw 90 miles per hour fastballs, breaking balls, whatever. It was a pain to catch and I had to keep a wet sponge inside my mitt in case I caught one directly in the palm. He was drafted 12th overall by the Marlins and received a $1.8 million signing bonus that he got before he even went to spring training. Ended up blowing over $1.5 million on substances and partying. Developed a progressively bad lost his ability to play, lost his spot in the team, and his shot at many millions of dollars. It wasn't exactly overnight, but the dude wasted $1.5 million plus everything he would have gone had he continued his upward trajectory, and it all happened in about 8 months. Story 28. I had the pleasure of meeting the kindest person I've ever met. He came from a really snobby and popular family, but he was friends with literally everyone. He would hang out with the outcasts. He would actually come over if he posted online about how you were lonely, and he didn't care at all about high school politics. I met him once and he made a significant impact on my life. He was just genuine about being fair and nice to everyone he met. He had every chance to be a jerk given that he was smart, good-looking, and came from a wealthy family. But nope, he gave off this huge sense of peace when you were around him. If I had to describe the second coming of Jesus, it was him. A year after meeting him, he ends up missing for 3 days. Eventually, the story unfolds that he was at a party the night he went missing. But he was the DD for everyone, so it was odd that he just suddenly left before anyone else did. 3 days later, my brother finds him on an old logging road in his pickup with a gunshot wound. He had apparently taken shrooms and wanted to meet God. His family found his Bible and it was filled with highlighted passages about heaven and the soul finding peace with Jesus. I'm guessing that the church he went to had a lot to do with it. It was the kind where everyone affluent and popular goes to, but given that they were disgusting people, they didn't seem to practice what they preached. The evil goes to hell, but not us because we are here on Sunday. At his funeral, the pastor had the gall to say he went to hell since he committed a sin by taking his own life. That kind of church. I really miss you, Stevie. Thank you for showing me the single bit of kindness I ever found in that town. Story 29. Took out $35,000 credit card debt for online pay the interest by borrowing from a Chicago gang, not tell his wife is bisexual before she finds it, take out a big insurance policy on her while she's in Iraq thinking something tragic will happen to her, and he'll have $1 million to pay the card in the gang and live well. She remained unharmed in Iraq, so he tries to strangle her while she's cooking dinner. He injures her hand, but she chokes him out and escapes. He tries to fight the police, then tries to punch the judges. Got 2 days for that. But his mama knows the judges, so the attempted murder, as well as the domestic violence and the battery charges, were dropped. He hides in the woods to avoid the process server for the divorce, threatens in writing to kill the now ex-wife's XO and chaplain, except it's wartime, so they throw him in the brig for military charges instead of civilian charges, so mama can't buy him free. And in the brig, he brags to everyone about how he tried to kill a sailor by flooding a ship's compartment years ago. So he gets charged with 1 sabotage, 2 attempted murders, and all sorts of lesser charges. Got a dishonorable discharge and just got out 14 years later. He managed all of this in just 4 months. Source: I'm the ex-wife. Story 30. My cousin's husband got into a drunken fight outside a bar and punched the other guy pretty hard. Other guy fell, hit his head on the curb, and cousin's husband is now in jail. She took their kids and got remarried. What makes it even worse is that the new husband is a total so not only did those kids lose their dad, they're now stuck with a for a stepdad. Story 31. Huffing paint. My college buddy was an affable stoner type who liked psychedelics and drinking. He was so broke he got into huffing paint over the summer. He passed out with a plastic bag full of spray paint over his face and ended up depriving his brain of oxygen. He's now mentally disabled due to brain damage. Can no longer perform basic life tasks like tying his own shoes. Story 32. Went to school with a kid who threw a rock off an overpass and killed the dude. Whole life down the drain at that point. Made international news. This was in Flint, Michigan. We saw him about a week later. He had tattooed 3/4 of his face green. Like, no design or anything. Just solid dark forest green. Basically, he just left the top right quarter of his face normal and the rest was all green. He had been immediately fired from his job the day after getting the tattoo. I kind of lost touch with him shortly after that, since he moved to another city. I'd heard he wound up living in his car. Story 33. A friend of mine took out a loan for $250,000. I promise I'm not exaggerating this number. To pay for her dream wedding to a guy she had known for 3 months. They got divorced after less than a year and she's still in debt from it. I would love to be a wedding guest and eat my gold-covered popcorn as that implodes. Story 34. Friend with a full-ride scholarship to a pretty good school for baseball had too much to drink before prom. There was a scuffle and the police were called. When they showed up, one of them grabbed him by the shoulder. Not realizing it was a cop and already being on edge, he swung around and rocked the guy. Hardest I've ever seen someone get hit. Lost his scholarship and spent some time in jail. Never really recovered. Sincerely, a really nice guy with a bit of a drinking problem. Super sad to see. Story 35. Very weird one here. Without going into too much detail, this was a single dad who ran a youth club. The other staff tried to hush this up, but his kids were integrated into the main social group here, so it got out pretty quickly. He was fairly religious, adamant that his 15-year-old daughter was not to have a boyfriend, and never let her have boys over, even as friends. She, of course, had a boyfriend who came over during the gap between the end of school and when he got home from work. He suspected it, but couldn't prove it, so he installed a webcam in her bedroom. Of course, he caught her doing the deed with the guy on film, downloaded it to his computer to show his daughter as proof so he could discipline her. She obviously immediately freaks out, calls her mom, who calls the police, social workers arrive, guy gets done for CP. Currently going through the court system, has been forced to leave the youth club and hasn't seen his kids for almost a year. The brother revealed all of this to one of his friends. You know how kids are, word spread. Poor guy was always very odd. I would say on the spectrum, definitely. I genuinely believe he didn't realize what he had done. He just viewed it as parenting. Lost his kids, his job, his social life through the staff at the youth club, the respect of the community, and probably his freedom all in one stupid mistake. Story 36. A guy I know and I went to a casino for fun once. I lost about $20 on a slot and $50 in drinks and buffet, but that guy I knew lost $1,250 before I kind of stopped him. After a year, he lost everything, including his family because of gambling. I still regret bringing him to a casino from time to time. Story 37. So not a permanent up, but I've had 4 friends ruin their life over World of Warcraft. Kind of a happy ending, I guess. 4 very close friends of mine all graduated high school at the same time. They all went to college, I joined the Marine Corps. We were all nerds and were all familiar with MMOs and Blizzard. World of Warcraft had really started getting hot, but there was just no freaking way I could play it, but they all started. This was 2006-ish. Fast forward 8 years. I'd finished my enlistment and went to college. Me and 2 of those guys were graduating college together with their bachelors. Another one never went back, and the 4th one had to join the Navy because he failed so many classes that his debt was astronomical, and he couldn't get back into school. The culprit? World of Warcraft. These guys were putting in 12 hours a day for years in that game. They all failed, all dropped out, all had to pick up the pieces years later after they got their lives back on track. They're all doing well now. None of us, myself included, will touch MMORPGs. Seriously, if you see your life headed down the drain because of an MMO, make changes. These guys lost 4 years of their lives over essentially nothing.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out this next video. The YouTube algorithm really thinks you like it.